talked on this channel a couple of times already about a new budget-minded, fully foldable phone like the Z Fold 4. Boy, that was a lot of F words all back to back to back. A device called the TECNO Phantom V Fold. Now, TECNO is not a brand that a lot of people in the United States are super familiar with, but they are getting more and more known in some smaller markets, or maybe I should say some rapidly growing markets like in India. And today, the TECNO Phantom V Fold has been sort of fully unveiled. So we're going to roll through everything that we know about it right now via, of course, a well-organized thread here on Twitter. This is the TECNO Phantom V Fold, and this device is coming very, very soon. If we scroll down here, you will see that it is coming in Q2 of 2023. So we are only months away from this device's launch, and it will be launching in India first, starting at the equivalent of $1,100 US. Yes, you heard me right. That is extremely inexpensive for a device like this, something that we're used to seeing in the $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 range. TECNO's pulling it off for about $1,100. Now, once it launches in India, like I said, they will be expanding to some other markets. I doubt we're going to see this thing in your local AT&T store, but it will be launching in other areas. It will make it much easier to import to the United States if you want to try something like this out. It will have 12 gigs of RAM and 256 storage for that price. So really, not too bad at all. So let's look at this thing. This thing weighs 299 grams, which is definitely on the heavy side, okay? That's heavier than a Fold 4. That's heavier than pretty much most phones you're ever going to use. The cover display is a 6.42-inch LTPO AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080 by 2550, so a 1080p panel at 120 hertz. Notice that it is much wider than what you have on the Fold 4. Personally, I think that's a pretty decent looking cover display. 1080p does not bother me at all. The internal display is 7.85 inches, 2000 by 2296. So this is at least barely a 2K panel, also running at 120 hertz. Now, TECNO is also claiming that with their hinge technology that this thing is relatively crease-free, although I could not find a good image showing exactly how crease-free that we actually do mean, because we hear the term crease-free all the time, and it almost never actually means crease-free. It means crease harder to see. Remains to be seen exactly what we're talking about here. Now, one big downside of this device is that it does not have that free locking hinge of something like Samsung's devices, where you can set it up and use it as its own tripod or as a little laptop, whatever you want to do. This thing is either going to be opened or closed. It's not going to lock in any particular position. So for the internals, TECNO is not going with a Snapdragon processor. They're going with a MediaTek Dimensity 9000 Plus, which is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? That processor does benchmark right around the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is what we have in the Fold 4 already. So don't expect it to be a world beater, but it should, on paper, with 12 gigs of RAM and that processor, should be performant enough. This is a 4nm chip, so this is really not a big deal, 5G compatible, and it's going to be cheaper than using that Snapdragon. Now, we do have a triple camera setup on the back, which on paper does look pretty darn good. A 50 megapixel primary, a 50 megapixel 2x optical zoom with, high resolution, so digital zooming in, a hybrid zoom, if you will, should be pretty decent. We'll look at some photo samples here in a second. A 13 megapixel ultra wide. Then for the selfies, the cover display is a 32. The internal one is a 16 megapixel. So again, on paper, all of this does sound pretty good. It's where things, the rubber meets the road, that things often do break down. And we have some samples here from Android Authority. We're only going to look at 4, link to this thread and thereby this article in the description if you want to go look at this in full resolution and see several more samples. I think that it looks, I don't know what this looked like in real life, so I can't really speak to it too much, but it looks a little drab to me. I have a hard time thinking that none of these colors, none of this red was popping any more than this, that this looks a little bit kind of toned down a bit to me. The 2x zoom, it just looks okay, all right? We go 2x zoom here and then zooming into 5x here. None of this stuff is mind-blowing, and if you look at the other samples, I think what you should be expecting here is the camera performance of a mid-range to low-end type device, okay? TECNO is not Samsung. They are not Google. This isn't going to be a world-beating camera, but again, it's a budget foldable, so it's about what you should be expecting. As for charging, the TECNO Phantom V Fold does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Where was that weight going? Well, it looks like it was going towards the battery because it is quite large. It's bigger than the Fold 4 by a good amount. It does have 45 watt wired charging as well, so that's also a good thing, but no Qi wireless charging being packed in, which is definitely a little bit of a bummer. Now, when we talk about budget phones, the software is often a place where things kind of begin to fall apart a little bit, and it seems like that might be a similar case here. Android Authority said, as you look at the settings here on the screen, that while there are some good things here, right, they have the RAM extension, they have dual apps, they have some good stuff built in here, there is some more bloatware than they would like to see, and there was some stuttering in their performance. Now, this stuff might get ironed out with some updates. It's not actually released yet, so that might not be something to worry about just yet. They said in the article, this made me laugh, what the heck is Carl Care? And in fact, if you scroll up here, you can see on the home screen, Carl Care. I don't know who is Carl. What does that mean? There's no way to know. Very, very odd. As I said earlier, the TECNO Phantom V Fold is launching in Q2 in India first, with more regions coming very, very soon. I'm personally excited about this device, right? Is this going to beat the Fold 4? No, okay, it's not. But is it still exciting to see a budget-minded, a more budget-friendly, I know it's still $1,100, but you know what I mean, relatively speaking, a cheaper foldable phone, is that still exciting for me to see? Absolutely it is. I'm very excited to see this exact thing happen. And I cannot wait to see it launch in other areas and for reviews to start coming out. Guys, for more info just like this, hit that subscribe button before you go. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.